When I was growing up in Clarkson, Mississauga, in Canada here, it was quite interesting because we were all brought up in a lot of people. There was a million people in the area. I just felt like I didn't fit in, though. I really honestly felt like I didn't fit in. The reason why is because my biological mom and my father separated when I was young. I was 2 years old. My dad met up with his high school sweetheart. And honestly, I thought she was like a crazy redhead. She had a bad anger problem. She would always take everything out on me. So Jason was my stepbrother. My dad remarried and she already had a child. My brother Thomas, he was my biological brother. I was raised with him. And we stayed in Clarkson probably till I was 13 years old. But in those 13 years, I caused a lot of problems. There was a lot of problems, and I mean, I got in a lot of trouble. At least I was accused of a lot of things. I can't really say I was the one that had the problem or caused the problem, but I took the heat for it. I learned at an early age to shut my mouth and don't say nothing. Don't tattletale on anybody. Don't sit there and put the problem on someone else. Just hold it in. And that was a pattern for many, many years. I mean, when I got grounded, I'd be locked in my room, no TV, no phone calls, home after school. I'd have to do my homework. And I was not allowed any radio, anything. I just have to sit in my room, do nothing, and I couldn't really do much of anything. It was very boring. And I used to get suspended a lot. I thought that was kind of cool. Who don't want to be in school? I didn't want to be in school. It was one of the places I hated. So they come up with this theory, and it sure taught me a lesson. That theory was an in-house suspension. So instead of being suspended from school and being away for 5 to 7 days or 10, 15 days, they would actually put me in school for 7 days, and I had to sit on the other side, basically in the principal's office. I didn't like that very much at all. So the whole reason why I wanted to be suspended in the first place is because I didn't want to be at school. Now they're actually putting me in the principal's office. It was like a spare room that they actually had in the principal's office. Everybody would look at me and say, "Oh yeah, you got suspended, but you got to be in with the principal." And some of the people would actually pick on you for that because they would sit there and say, "Oh, you're sucking up to the principal," or and kind of a bully situation. So I became the bully afterwards because I wasn't going to tolerate that. So I got into a lot of fights, got suspended. Then I decided I wanted to walk away from school. One of the worst ones I did in school is the football team was going after my brother Tom. We were new to the school because we actually moved to a different area up in Flesherton, Ontario in Canada. And it was my brother Tom was getting picked on from the guy in the football team. I thought this was hilarious. This is one of the best things I've done. Next thing you know, I decide, well, we're not going to tolerate this no more. I said, we're the Moore family. We're just going to have to stick up for ourselves. We're new. No matter what, we'll just have to do it. Show them we're not going to tolerate this stuff. The garbage can was open. The garbage can was open at the back of the room there, the back of the back of the school. So this guy come running, going after my brother. So my brother trips him. I grab him and I throw him right in the garbage bin, and I sat on top of it. And he couldn't get out. Everybody was laughing at him. But then the principal come out and they caught me doing it. So when they suspended me this time, they actually gave me a letter to send home, which I never gave to the people at home. My parents would kill me if they seen this. It wasn't just a suspension. I was totally kicked out. I was suspended till I was 16, but then once I hit 16, get out. Don't be back on the property ever. Now, before my parents can actually find that out, that I was kicked out of school forever and not allowed back on the property, I actually ran away from home. We had an opportunity to see my biological mom. She was actually living with an auxiliary police officer at the time. So when I got to actually sit down and be with them, he didn't like me very much because I spoke my mind. I was drinking all his beer. And I was underage drinking. He didn't like that at all. But he wasn't a regular police officer. He was an auxiliary police officer. He worked with the youth, the troubled youth, SLAPs. And it was like a jail for the kids. Him and I would fight all the time. We'd get in arguments. And when my parents come down to pick me up, my dad was coming down to pick me up, I actually ran away. So they couldn't pick me up. I wouldn't go home with them. So that was my journey of being on the streets. So basically, I started going on the streets, hanging around with different crowds, and being recognized in a different manner, a total different manner, because I was trying to fill the void in my life. The void in my life I was trying to fill, I don't think I've ever found that, because it was the happiness, joyful, oh, it's so sweet, Robert. I never got that. When I started running away from my dad and I didn't want to live with him no more, I was only like, I think it was 16 years old at the time. I was being kicked out of school. I did not want to face that. My dad, the nicest guy on earth, but you start messing with the fact of his son doing wrong, he kind of takes that the wrong way. So my stepmom, Diane, I call Mom, she was a hothead. I did not want her to know that I was running away. I did not want her to know that I messed up in school, got in more trouble, because she was always about, when you ever going to learn? When you ever going to learn? All you are is a misfit. All you ever do is wrong. And even if her own son did wrong, and I got the blame for it, because he would say, oh, Robert did it. He would never take the blame. And even if he did, guess what? Nah, it's okay, baby. It's okay. It's okay. He'd get away with it because it's her only son. So my dad had to suffer with his only 2 children being punished all the time. But I'm the runt of it because I was the runt. I was the youngest one in the house. Now, as time went on, I found out my biological mother actually had 2 more children. So, and I got to hang around with my brother Reagan for a little bit. I wasn't very close with him. I can honestly say I wasn't very close with him. My brother Kevin and I were very close. Very, very close. We did a lot of things together. We went to jail together. I mean that's close enough as you can get. You know what I mean? We got charged together. We did jail together. We rented out rooms together in different areas, and we actually did a lot of crime together. Now, he became the big drug dealer. I became the drug user. But at the same time, when he was doing all that stuff, it wasn't changing my life. It was actually changing my life for the worse, because I didn't actually use drugs till 1992, when Penny Ann Brick, the mother of my 2 children, died in my hands. The oldest child was born. Fortunately, I could not be there. I was in jail when my daughter was born. Then I got out. I was trying my best to behave, and I kind of got into a few fights and did a few things wrong, and as the story goes, I ended up back in jail. I think I ended up with 9 months to a year. At that point in time, I was actually charged with armed robbery. So I did 9 months dead time. And then I got out. The only reason why I got out, because they felt bad for me, because I was having another child. And it actually went worse than what I thought it would be, because when I went to watch her give birth and I was there for her, I was actually physically there this time. Well, she died giving birth. She had a pulmonary emboli and an epileptic seizure, they classify it as, and she died right there in my hands. When that happened, it was the turmoil, the emotions. I didn't know how to deal with them. So how would I deal with emotions? I drank, I used more drugs, and I put myself in a position where I didn't want to deal with that emotion. So I kept getting deeper, deeper, and deeper. And I basically floated for years on end, in and out of jail. But in those years I was floating, I hung around with a lot of gang members, a lot of organized crime, either it be bikers or it be mafia, and they became my friends. So when I was hanging around with these type of people, and I felt that it was actually filling the void. I got free booze, free money, free things. If I wanted a car, they'd set it up, no problem. Anything I needed, they got me. As long as I was willing to sacrifice the way I was living. So it was really kind of interesting, because 169 was Shago. We called it Hazard County. It was the clubhouse, but I was actually, it was a coffin. They took the top part off the coffin, and I actually used that as a bed. And I slept with a 22 pirate gun. beside me. So that way if someone come in the door, I'd get them, you know. And everything was done by batteries. There was no electricity. The bathroom wasn't even a bathroom. Really what it was it was a toilet you sit in, and you had to take it and dump it in a big bowl later on in the field. And that would just dry up and do its thing, and you better hope you don't fall in that in the wintertime. I had this one guy I've known him since 3 years old, Robert Goundry. Him and I, we used to go around getting in trouble all the time. We did things that open up eyes for other people because, like I've said, we wanted to fill in that void. So Robert and I would go around causing problems, either get kicked out of school. So like I mentioned before, when I was doing suspension, 90% of the time it was with Robert. We would skip class or we'd do something, we'd get in trouble, and then the school said, okay, well, you guys aren't going home. You're actually going to sit in the principal's office. But they separated us so that way we can't sit there and talk and giggle all day or whatever we're going to laugh at or make other jokes about things, or they actually wanted us to suffer. So Robert and I, we went through quite a bit together. And even to this day, he's still a personal friend of mine, and I can call a brother. And I highly respect him, man. I highly respect him. But it bothered me because I felt he was distant after a while, and I didn't know why. Later on, I found out it's because of my lifestyle. He didn't want to be involved in my lifestyle. And I can give him credit for that. I can respect him today for that after he explained it to me. But at the time, I couldn't understand it.
I got my life and I met my wife and stuff, and I got out of that shit. And I didn't want nothing to do with it. But I always said, if Rob cleaned himself up, I'd like to get back with him. And he did. I'm proud of Rob. He's come so far. Stuff we've done growing up, man. I remember chasing a girl down the street because she stole my hat and throwing dirt balls at a window. And Rob's passing me the dirt balls, and all of a sudden he passes me one with a rock in it. Well, through the window it went. The funniest part, I still laugh to this day, was the look on that girl's face because she was making faces at us in the window. And well, sorry to say, by the time we got back to school after lunch, the police were there to question both of us with our parents. And they weren't happy. They replaced a plate glass window that was about 8 by 10. And well, about 2 weeks we didn't see each other because we were both grounded. But that was one. And I remember smoking dope with Rob behind the school and going to shop class stoned. And teacher we had at the time, Mr. Davis, used to give us a magnet and a ball bearing to play with when we came to shop class stoned. And well, we didn't mind because we were together. School, we used to smoking in the boys' room. That was our song. And every day at the same time, we met in the boys' room to smoke. And there was a teacher that used to catch us all the time, never busted us, but he'd catch us, send us back to class. Rob Moore's dad was more like a dad to me, like my dad. Both our dads catch us doing crap, and he'd grab us by the ears and take us home. And if it was his dad cause, he'd stop at my house first and tell my parents and then go off to his house and deal with Rob. If it was my dad, it'd be the other way. But we got into a lot of trouble growing up. And, well, we've overcome it. I had moved away when I was about 12 years old. My parents bought a house out of town in Guelph for about 2 years. They lived up there, so we were separated then. But when I came back, we got right back in together again, and that's when we were skipping class and smoking dope and doing all this stuff. Our lives were living the same way, and I was going the same way as he was. But when he moved away, I kind of got away from that. I still smoked the dope, and I still skipped school, and I still got in trouble. But then I met my wife, and I settled down. I stopped smoking dope, and I stopped drinking as much. My wife, I say she saved my life. I was drinking myself to death until I met her. But I met my wife, and I settled down. I had my daughter, and that's when I put my life together, and I'm a family man. I started working full-time on a regular basis. I did this and that. I got myself in trouble too. I went to jail for 8 months. I was in the wrong place at the wrong time. No, I wasn't, but I got caught. I did my time. When I did that, I'm like, I'll never want to do this again. And I straightened up when I came home. I started driving trucks shortly after that, and I ran into Rob shortly after that in Hamilton. I got lost. I was in the truck and I got lost. I was sitting at a light, and some guy yelled at me, "Hey, you got a cigarette?" And I gave him a cigarette, and all of a sudden it was Robert Gowndry, and I'm like, holy crap. And we just got talking. He gave me his phone number. Well, I knew he was into the drugs. You could tell by looking at him. And I had heard the stories from other people because I still lived in Mississauga that knew Robert, and they told me what he was into and stuff like that. And he's like, "Here, you take my number, give me a call." And I kept his number. At the end of the day, I looked at the empty cigarette pack I wrote the number on. I'm thinking, I don't want nothing to do with that. I threw it away. And that's when I told myself, if he ever gets clean, I'd definitely like to hook back up again. And I never called him. And it was a couple years later, I got a Facebook message. My wife told me, "Hey, guess who got a hold of you? Robert Moore." And all I thought is, oh God, it's the last thing I need. But I checked out his Facebook profile, and he had been clean at that point, I don't know, about a year and a half. And we hooked back up, and we've been talking every now and then regularly. I'm like I've said it already, I'm proud of Robert. He's come a long way. If I had to give Robert advice, go back in time to the younger Robert and give him advice, I don't know if I could give him advice that he would listen to back then. Because I don't think I would have listened to it either. I know I didn't. I know my dad had given me advice. My uncles, everybody had told me about stuff I was doing. I shouldn't be doing it, and this and that, and I didn't listen. That's just kids, right? I think life could have been different if he did stay around. Like if he hadn't moved up north, I think maybe I might have kept him out of trouble. Maybe he would have dragged me into it with him, and we'd both be sitting there making a story today about how we recovered and everything else. But I can't say. I don't know. I don't have any advice. What I'm most proud of, I don't think I can pick any one thing. He's done so much. He's just come from one complete end of the spectrum right to the other end, and everything in between. I'm proud of all of it equally.
When my wife died giving birth, she gave birth to a beautiful baby boy named Jeffrey. Very healthy. He was underweight. He was in an incubator for a while. But I did not have the chance to raise him because of my lifestyle. It bothered me, but at the same time, my Aunt Fran, my dad's sister, she was a registered nurse, and she would actually be registered as daycare. So she actually got custody of him and started raising him. Now, I'm honored because he was actually raised under my last name, Moore, kept the Moore name going, which was an honor. But he was slowly getting into trouble. He didn't know who I was. He didn't know who I was. He was always calling me Uncle Robert. It would bother me. I was saying, well, why doesn't this kid know I'm his father? You know, like, who's not telling him something here? Let's get to the point. When Jeffrey figured out who I actually was when the fact that he was talking to Fran. I think he was probably 12 or 13 years old. I can't say what year, he was older. That's all I can say is he was older when he found out. But I think he found out because my daughter Elizabeth, his older sister, told him what was going on. Now my daughter Elizabeth, she was actually brought up with her mother's side of the family because I was always in and out of jail at the time. So they didn't let me see her. They didn't like me very much, which I understand. I mean, who wants to have a criminal laying around and you possibly could be taking something to the pawn shop so you can have his next drink or drug. So my Aunt Fran was very close to me. She was very firm about the things I could do in the house. Firm, like, hey, you can't take your son out, can't go down the street because, I threatened quite a few times. Hey, listen, you keep this up, I'm just going to take my son and go somewhere. Where the hell was I going to go? I had nowhere to live. Right? So, I mean, it kind of bothered me. But at the same time, tough love had to play a role because of my lifestyle. Everybody knew what I was about. I didn't hide nothing. They could see it in the newspapers, on the TV, on the news. I would escape from jail, or I get in fights in jail, or I get back in jail, or something stupid would happen and they would say, oh, there goes Robert again. So, I mean, I did almost 17 years in jail, I will say. And there was 28 jails I was in, 42 charges. I'm not proud of that, but I wouldn't change anything from my past to make a difference today, because I'm very happy the person I am today, grateful for what I had to go through to be the person I am today. So I got to say, one thing I find funny is when I phoned down to my Aunt Fran's house one time, I was talking to my cousin Julie and her son. And I said to him, because I heard my son say something rude in the back end there, and it was like he wanted to be a gangster. And I knew he was trying to be a gangster, trying to be rough and tough and everything else. And I said to Julian, I said, hey, listen, you know what? I'm going to come down next week. I'm going to take Jeffrey in the backyard, and I'm going to see who the gangster is. He goes, what do you mean? I said, the first person out of that backyard, he's the gangster. He said, you're going to kick the shit out of your own son? I said, look, I'm just going to teach him a lesson to see who the gangster is, because I don't want him being a gangster. I don't want him living that life.
Hello, I'm Jeffrey Moore, Robert Moore's eldest son. You know, Robert, my father, I grew up calling him Robert. Actually, I grew up calling him Uncle Rob, as the knowledge of him being my father at the time was completely evasive. The family kind of kept it under wraps, as, well, when you're a father in and out of prison and the government tells you that you can't go near your children, that's probably the reality that you're going to experience. Your children are going to have very little knowledge of who their father is. Unfortunately, he was one of them. And at the time, I remember seeing all of my uncles, including my father, visiting every once in a blue moon, and I was always excited to see all of them equally, quite frank. And unfortunately, my Uncle Jay and Uncle Tom, they became distant. Unfortunate events happened in their lives, similar to that of my father's, but Rob always stuck around. And it must have been about years of 10, 12, give or take, that I asked my aunt, my great aunt at the time, who is he? You know, sure, he's my uncle, but why isn't, what happened to my dad? Where's my dad? Why is Uncle Rob always coming to the house and seeing me and not my dad? And she quickly asked me, well, if Uncle Jason's always in prison and Uncle Tom isn't here, but he's always coming to the house, who do you think your father is? I must admit, I didn't guess Rob. I did guess Tom. I did guess Jay, and then I guessed Robert. And from that point on, it became a reality that Robert was my father. You know, the behaviors of my father then, I was aware of. The realities affected me in many ways. And even till this day, it's influenced decisions in my life from the time I was a youngster all the way till the day that I became a father. And they still do influence my life. The influences and knowledge that I've obtained through many years of phone calls from prison, hearsay from family, both my mother's side and my side of the family, they can be unfortunate to hear. Robert getting into drugs, Robert not taking responsibility of his children at the time, being involved with people in which would only pull him down. Those events have affected the lives of many in my family, but today I must say, though those influences were of a negative effect through a high school fighting, street fighting, glorifying violence, these things are all foolish, and those are things I learned firsthand. But those are things that I could have learned from him without him ever having taught me directly. And those are the things that did affect me, but also have helped me grow. Hopefully they help others grow too. And I'm proud of who he's become. You know, he's grown in more ways than one. And how he chose to upset standards and surpass expectation. He should look himself in the mirror and be most proud of himself, most importantly, because when you remain the same, you receive the same. To change who you are, you're bound to get something in return that's far different than what you were continuously receiving. If the best advice I can give to my father would be, keep growing and do the best you can to raise your youngest into the man that you hope that you can mold him to be. And that's better than who you are. When I began to learn more about my father and who he's associated himself with at the time, and my life being, around the middle school ages, that's when a lot of the kids were into the cool stuff. They think they're the gangsters. They think they live the streets. They think they understand the streets. I knew my father did understand the streets, how gritty and how, unfortunately, it's a gruesome and dark reality that can creep within your heart. It corrupts you inside out. And I must admit, I'm guilty of having glorified the very nature of my father. I loved that image growing up. I thought it was cool, just like all the other influences around me at the time through high school. And it was probably grade 11 that I woke up one day. I had a crush on a young lady. And I guess that young lady made me look at myself in a way I never really looked at myself before. And I asked myself a question. With having grown up without a mother and having grown up with a father whom I've up to this point glorified in terms of violent and immature behavior and being a gangster, I asked myself, do I really want that for myself? Do I want that for my offspring? Do I want to be that man? Do I want to be the more that my family always judged me to be? You live with your father's sins, and it can be hard to live with. The world will always judge you based on the behaviors and acts of your fathers and the reputations, and I didn't want that for my children. And after that point, I chose to change my ways. I got into boxing. Boxing helped teach myself discipline. I'd cry in the ring. My friends thought that was very feminine to do so, cowardly to even express yourself in such a form. And oh man, the things I could do to that person in the ring, but would it be justified? Would it be right? And no, it wouldn't. Taught me self-discipline, taught me self-development, mentally, emotionally, as well as physically. And at that point, I realized I don't want fighting. I want education. I want to help community. I want to help these young minds that grew up in the streets thinking that they are these things, taught and bred to believe that they are worth something to the elders who are raising and teaching these kids the street life. May it be drugs, may it be violence, gangs. Kids are being taught that these things are cool. I know firsthand that they're not. And policing was a choice that I chose to educate myself on, having gone to Humber and college and further advancing myself and such. If it's one thing I know up to this day that brings a smile to my face, and it still brings kind of a kicker to my dad's, would probably be the idea of pulling him over if I were to ever catch him driving past the cruiser. I must admit, I would be guilty of that. It's a kick in the pants that I wouldn't mind giving him for all the heartache that he gave me as a youngster. But, crime is crime, whether it be family or whether it be friends. Wrong is wrong, and wrong will always be wrong, right will always be right. And who he's become, I see he's doing more right than any wrong in comparison to his past. And for that, that's excellent. So even if I did pull over, it'd just be a crack and a smile. How are you? Be on your way, I'll bug you later on. But I hope that, he's not only proud of who he's become, but I hope he's proud of who his own children have become, knowing who he was and knowing what they've had to go through. I think that would be very important for him and the family that he's growing and developing to this day. It'd really help him. I love my father. It's confusing to grow up with two fathers in their life, and I love them both. And I love Robert more. And I love him a great deal. I'll always be his son. I'll always carry his name. as my son would mine. And with that, it carries a bit of pride, knowing that I have a dad that's bettered himself, and it further continues to help me elevate myself, in a position to be eligible for new levels of success. And I hope he continues to do the same and influence those around him to do that too, especially the youth. I hope he gives back to the community in ways that he failed to do so then, give back what he has taken. And I hope that he succeeds in doing so.
When I was in jail, there was a guy in there I kept repeatedly seeing, probably as much as I was in there. His name was Steve. And him and I became really good friends inside the jail there. We do things together. If we got into a fight, we both get into a fight and help each other out to make sure nobody jumps in or whatever. We keep six for each other. We'd smuggle cigarettes in or dope in or whatever we need to do. Because it's all about survival when you go to jail. And it's all about, I used to call gladiator school because everybody has to show each other who's boss and that. But I was always hanging around with, because I was at the early ages of jail, I was always hanging around with the people that were the servers. The servers are the ones that actually control the range. They're the ones that give you the extra meals. They trade off your canteen. Now, your canteen happens to be when you have money, you get to buy your chips or your chocolate bars. At that point in time, you could buy your cigarettes, and it was Daily Mail. We were smoking the Roleos. Now they don't have tobacco in jail. But he used to be the kind of guy that would be there for me. He actually set me down the one time and told me maybe it's time to settle down, man. It's getting out of hand. So you're going to end up killing somebody.
So my name's Steve. I've been, doing, painting for probably the past 17 years, just running the business. Got into a little bit of trouble when I was younger. It was a little bit of car theft, fraud, things like that. And, kind of started to go down the wrong path. But as I got into the system, I had a situation come up. There was a location, and which I'm not going to name. I got locked up one time again for car theft, and as I was going into the being brought into the prison, they asked me, do you want to go into PC, which is protective custody, and I asked why, and he seemed like he was a little bit embarrassed. He said, it's a little white in here. I said, okay, well, I recognize, what you're trying to do for me, but probably not a good idea. So I decided to go into, what, most people would consider to be a general population or, not protective custody. And he was right. It was a little white in there. There was definitely some tension in there. And there was this other prisoner that was, seemed like he wasn't, from around that particular area, but he kind of called to my attention that he could see that there were some things going on in there that I was probably going to get caught up in, that were bigger than I might have been willing to, considering why I was there and how long I was going to be there. And we had so they came into the range. There were some new people brought in. He was operating just outside of the range. I guess he had some kind of janitor duty or whatever, some kind of special privilege. But I heard some of the other guys, just calling him a big fish. He had been from a bigger place, going through. I don't know what was going on really, but anyways, he kind of advised me and said, hey, look, something's probably going to be going down here later. There's somebody coming in here that a lot of people don't like, and you may have to get involved, right? If he gets dropped into this side of the range, and you're not participating in this, you could find yourself, in some heat. You know what I mean? And so we got to talking for a little bit, and it sounded like he had my back, and eventually it turned out to be nothing. There did wind up being some trouble on the other side, and somebody was definitely in a, I'm just gonna call it a fight for now, and it was just in that opportunity to meet Robert. I just found that he was just to be, he's a very compassionate guy, but at the same time, he was definitely an instigator. It was just kind of the way that he kind of got it done that day, and it was a weird situation, but I kind of felt like he was somehow doing some, some kind of good that day. So I've never forgotten it, and I've tried to, we've been friends since. It blows my mind, actually, because sometimes, I know for myself, I've surprised myself and dug very deep to try and find that better part of myself. And one of the reasons I haven't forgotten Robert is because, he took that step. He dug really deep, and the things that he's doing today, it's very moving. I'm watching him impact thousands of people's lives. I see some of the people that he knows, that he's connected with, that he's networked with, and he's ultimately become, the kind of leader that you would want to follow. So,
what advice would you give to a younger Robert, knowing where he is now, but not knowing that he would get there?
Well, from what I could see, I would have just said patience. There was always an intensity that did cause a little bit of trouble, but you could tell that it was an energy that could be used in a better place, and it was just a matter of time and patience. So if I was talking to him, if I had more understanding of where he was coming now and how bad he wanted to get there, back then I'd be saying, Robert, be patient, take it one step at a time, and don't lose your cool over this, because that's the path that's meant for you.
So it sunk in with me when Steve said you need to straighten out your life. I would say not fully, maybe 30-40% of it, because I was still, my mindset and my actions were always there. My behavior, I was a very angry person. I hated fighting with a passion, but I did a lot of it because of my size, and I was my voice, and I use that to intimidate people, I guess. And here's the thing. When I kept going in and out of jail, I finally wanted to get the help. So I finally put myself in detox. Now, when I put myself in detox, here's the thing. Going in detox, I must have went in there 50 to 60 times. All because I just wanted to get sober for a week and get healthy for the week to start over again. Well, finally, this time I actually went in there. I said, I want to go in and get the help I need. So I went in there to get the help I needed, and I was truly, truly serious. When I called the hospital for a crisis bed, they accepted me. But I was on the bus on the way into the crisis bed, and I actually conned someone out of $20 on the bus because I heard my friend was just got out of jail. And I said, well, I got to have one last drunk before I go in. If I'm going to quit, I might as well do it right. And that's the old alcoholic way of thinking. Next thing you know, I got off the bus and I was starting to walk down to the beer store. And I was talking to myself like I am right now, but to the camera. And I said some things I guess someone else overheard. And it was like this little girl said, he needs help. I never clued in. And all of a sudden, 2 seconds later, it's like, wow, she said I need help. So I turned around, went to look for her, and I didn't see her. But I went to the woman I thought she was with, and I said, ma'am, where's the little girl? I want to thank her. She goes, I don't have a little girl. I don't know what little girl you're talking about. So to me, that was a sign. There was no little girl around, not whatsoever. I don't know how to explain it, but I'll just keep it that way. And it got me into the hospital, and once I got in there and they started doing the reports and I got myself in the detox, they said, oh, we've been waiting for you. So I finally got in there, and it was a miracle that happened because they offered me, they said, if you're really serious this time, we normally never, ever do this. They called the welfare system and they said, listen, will you pay for his stay at the detox for 3-4 months? And they said, if he's serious and signs a paper saying he's serious and really wants to get the help, we will do it. And that was the first I've ever heard of that. I've never heard of that before. So now that they gave me the opportunity to stay there 3-4 months, it gave me some extra thought. I said, oh man, I kind of put myself in a jam here because my typical routine would be stay there a week. You stay there a week and then you get very healthy from eating a lot and then sleeping quite a bit. You're over the withdrawals and then you go back out using. Well, at this point in time, I changed that because I actually phoned all these different places to get in. Now they told me it's going to take 3-4 months to get me into a proper detox place. Not a detox place, a proper recovery place where I can get the help for my anger, my drugs, my alcohol, and the way I was doing things, my thought process. So I said, okay, so I just kept calling everyone. And the one I really wanted to get into was in Aurelia. And that was 7 South Treatment Center. But at the same time as I wanted to get in there, I made that the last call. I don't know why. I think maybe because I was scared. I really wanted to go into that one. But at the same time, I was actually scared to hear, okay, come on in. So when I did call them, and it was honestly the last one on the list of all the ones I called, and the lowest one before that was 2 months. I had to wait 2 months before I can get in there. Now I'm thinking to myself, what am I going to do in 2 months in this detox center that's going to help me out and keep me sober without just walking out the door, going to the beer store? So here's what happened. I called them and they said, can you be up here on Tuesday? This is a Friday I called. They said, can you be up here on Tuesday? They said, pack your bags, bring all your bags with you, be ready to come in just in case, because we have an opening. If we accept you, you're in on Tuesday. So I went up there on the Tuesday, and it blew my mind because they accepted me right away, but they did mention that they could see that I was a very agitated person. And I wanted to make it look worse than that because I wasn't agitated. I was angry. I was an angry person. So what I did was I wanted to show them I was angry. So I guess I was fighting with the people in there, right? All the other people going for treatment, I was getting mad at. They actually pulled me aside several times. We did anger management separately, and you're only supposed to stay in there for 2.5, 3 months. I was in there for almost 5 months because of the fact of how bad the bad shape I was in. I didn't think there was any cure. I honestly didn't think so. I lost hope. When I started going to meetings, like AA, NA, and different meetings like that, there was one guy that came up to me. He would tell me, he said, listen, you need to report to someone. Who's your sponsor? And I said, what do you mean? What is a sponsor? What is this stuff? He goes, I mean, what do you report to? I said, I got probation on, so I report to her. He goes, no. He says, in a program like this, you want to talk to someone that can help guide you through the different steps. And I said, I have no idea what you're talking about. So he just pulls out a piece of paper, writes down his phone number, says, you call me every day at this time now. I'm thinking, well, who the heck is this guy? To find out, he's an ex-biker. All right, he was an ex-biker, so he says, listen, you can't pull the wool over my eyes. I've been there and done it. He says, you know what? And he looked rough. He looked tough. But at the same time, I mean, we almost went around back several times because I was just so angry. It wasn't that I feared him or I didn't fear him. It was just I was so angry, I just didn't care. He got to see that I was that angry. We just got right to work with okay, he forgot about the anger. He just let it go. He said, look, I know you're angry. I know the fact of what you're going through. I've been down there. I've gone through it myself. He says, I just don't want you to lose control and end up back in jail. And back the same way you were, or use that anger to get drunk or stoned or something because it's an excuse. It'll be an excuse to go back. And I told him, I said, listen, I'm very serious. I just don't know how to go about doing it. So once we did 1, 2, 3, the steps in AA, like step 1, step 2, step 3, he says, okay, now let's go back to step 1. I said, why? I said, are we going to do step 4? He goes, no, you didn't do them right. So he made me do them like 4 or 5 times. He wanted to make sure I was ready. So when I actually did go through 1, 2, and 3, 4, he didn't actually go through number 4 with me. He had another guy sit down with me to go through number 4, and that's a moral inventory of yourself. And I'm going to tell you, I was tear-jerking all over the place. I'm talking, I had snot flying all over the place, tears all over the place. I had weeping like a big baby. The stuff that was coming out of me, I couldn't believe it. And the guy looks at me and says, that's it? That's what kept you drinking? I'm thinking, pardon me? You that's what kept you drinking? That's it? So when this guy actually says that, I look at him and I honestly, I want to backhand him something fierce. But I'll be honest with you, it brought the sense of what he said, because when he looked at me and said, that's it, he goes, do you realize other people go through 10 times worse and they're sober? He says, yours isn't that bad. He says, yeah, you had a few things happen in your life and this and that and this. But he says, let's be honest. There's people been through worse. And that's what you need to focus on, that yours isn't as bad as others. I said, that's true. That is very true. So that led me on to when I was in the treatment center, I got to see my probation officer, Tamara. She didn't believe me at first. I felt very uncomfortable at first talking to her, but soon to realize she was a really solid person, actually.
So my name's Tamara Williamson. I was a probation officer back in 2005, 2006 when I first met Rob. My sessions with Rob were loud and enthusiastic. Rob would come in and he would quote the big book with page numbers and would tell me about the steps in AA and where he was. And he was very clear about his recovery. I had the pleasure of meeting Rob after he started his recovery. The very first time I met him, he came into my office, declared his sobriety very loudly and very enthusiastically, and he wanted to make sure that I was up to the job of helping him with his sobriety, to which I nodded and I smiled because, you know, as a probation officer, you deal with people who have addiction issues of all different kinds. And so I nodded and smiled and said I was here to support him. And then I sit back and wait for the fallout of those promises that people make. And with Rob, there's never been a fallout. He has remained sober since declaring it to me that time. And I'm very proud of him for that. He's not your typical offender. Even back then, I knew that. The other things that he would do in appointments, I'm not sure if he said he would challenge, or if I said this already, but he would challenge me and my knowledge of things. And so I took it upon myself to go and get a big book from AA, just so I knew at least a little bit of what he was talking about. And I would scribble down the page numbers that he mentioned. And after he left, I would look up those quotes. And he was right. He had it right every time. Again, I nodded and I smiled. And then after he left, the first thing I did was pick up the phone and call the treatment center. It was a treatment center here in Aurelia. And I asked if they knew him, and they said yes. And then I asked if he was for real. And they laughed and said, yes, he actually is for real. And again, I kept waiting for the fallout, and it never ever happened. If I said that I didn't have concerns about that, I'd be lying. But once I got to know Rob, he was reporting about it probably every 2 weeks at that time. High-risk offenders reported every 2 weeks. The more I got to know him, I realized that him falling off the wagon or relapsing in any way wasn't going to happen, at least not with the drugs or alcohol. It was going to be with his anger. And I remember talking to him about that one day, and it's almost like the moment that I expressed concern about it, he was challenged by that, and that's never been a problem either. So as a probation officer, we go through all sorts of safety protocols. My office was hadn't been renovated yet in our bigger office area. So my office was tucked in around the corner at the back. And my desk, for every probation officer, your desk and your chair are closest to the door, so that if the offender gets upset or starts to come at you, you can get to the door faster than he can. So all of our offices were like that. And I remember that Rob thought that was a really big deal because he'd been in probation offices before, lots of them, and he had never seen that setup before. It was probably around the time when we were starting to take our personal safety a lot more serious. most people relapse 4 to 7 times before they get it right. And so I just did what I normally do, and I'm here to support you. Whatever you need, if relapse happens, then we'll figure it out from there. No judgment, because relapses happen, and it never happened with Rob. I was concerned about his anger. And we talked about that. When I expressed it to him, it's almost like I put up another challenge for him, and so he didn't relapse in anger either, which was good, because he's huge, and relapsing in anger could have gone very, very badly. It's still unreal that he has made so much of his experiences. As a probation officer, lots of people come to you and they've had terrible, awful, horrible experiences in their lives, and a lot of them focus on the fact that they were victimized, or that the system was in their way. But Rob was able to turn everything around. It's neat. A lot of people say, with hockey players or sports figures, you say, oh, I knew him when he was like 12 years old and playing hockey on the pond and stuff, and then he's in the NHL. Well, with Rob, I get to say I knew him when he didn't have a high school diploma. And he told me that he was going to go to the Adult Learning Center and he was going to get his high school diploma. And he did. And partway through that, he set a goal to get his college diploma. And he did that as well. And then he went to university and he figured out how to pay for all of this. He figured out how to write books. I had the privilege of reading his first book and editing it, although he didn't tell me at the time that he did text or speech to text. So as I'm editing it, I'm editing that, and it was those text to speech programs were in their primitive infancy, and so I did a lot of editing for that book, but it was worth it. I even took the photograph for the cover of that book. Followed Rob around one day and took photos. So I asked Rob one time why he wanted to get out of the biker stuff so early in his, not career, but early in his life. A lot of guys tend to go on committing crimes well into their 30s and 40s before they decide to kind of lay off. Rob wanted out early. He knew it wasn't for him. He knew it was not the way to go. I think there must have been some dissonance there, the conflict between who Rob thought he was and what he actually was. And he went with what felt right to him. And he got out. Rob was unique. Rob was different. He still is. He is still making something of himself, and he challenges himself all the time. It's almost like he enforces again, only this time he's enforcing on himself. He's always moving forward, always looking at the next thing to do. He's intense, right? So I think that's what drives him. He's remarkable. He has done remarkable things in his life. Rob isn't too good to be true. When people come at you that are larger than life and they have all these really grandiose ideas and plans, and especially when they're still in the midst, at the beginnings of the recovery, it's difficult to completely buy into what they're trying to do, because it's a new way of living. It's a new life that they're trying to lead, and it's exciting. And so he had all sorts of ideas, and he really was. He seemed too good to be true, and it turns out he wasn't. He actually is good and true.
So I can honestly tell you that a lot of people will ask me, when going into recovery, what was my rock bottom? And at the time, I don't really understand I didn't really understand what that meant, to be honest with you. I thought, okay, well, how bad was I? Or, I mean, like, I was just thinking, like, war stories. I mean, when a drug addict or an alcoholic starts bragging about the stuff they did, it's called a war story. But when you actually physically look at it, and look how many times I went to the hospital or how many times I went to jail. I mean, I was in jail for an armed robbery, for crying out loud, attempted murders, for crying out loud. I was caught with guns and knives and, you know, beating up people, a lot of assault charges. But I also got into a lot of fights, and I lost a lot of fights. I mean, the one I had 44 staples in my gut because I got stabbed by a 12-inch blade, and I was in the hospital for weeks on end. And I honestly hallucinated while I was in the hospital because they actually gave me Demerol, and then I guess I switched it to morphine later because of the pain. But then at the same time, they didn't know. I probably think they probably knew. I was actually having my brother come to the hospital to give me some cocaine, and I was actually putting that into the syringe that was already in my arm, and I was doing cocaine on top of all the stuff they gave me. I got lost in the bathroom for like 6 hours. I couldn't believe it. Another time, I mean, I got hit in the head with a hammer. I had blood all coming down my shirt. I walked into a bingo hall when my biological mother was there. Everybody's looking at me. They're calling the cops. I got blood all over me, and she's like, "What happened to you?" And all of a sudden, the cops come in. They took me out of there, took me in the ambulance. And to me, I didn't find it funny then. I didn't see a problem with it then. But later on, as we grew in recovery, I seen there was a problem. In order for me to change, I had to go through. There was a 12-year sentence they were offering me. That 12-year sentence, straight, I mean, I've already done all these years in jail, 17 years, in and out, in and out. I didn't want to do another 12 straight. It started, I don't know, I just felt it scared me. When it scared me, it was like, am I going to live through this? Am I going to actually go through this again? I just wanted away from this. So I actually prayed that day. I went to the bathroom, I prayed, and I gave my coat away to my biological mom that was there, my cigarettes, my keys. I said, I have a feeling I'm going. And right out of the blue, they said straight out forward, we can't figure out what's going on with this case. We're dropping it, and we're just going to, as long as he pleads guilty to a breach. So I got 3 breaches for 30 days, and that was it. So that rock bottom, to be honest with you, accumulated from a whole lot of different things. I started feeling guilty of the way I was living. I felt sad because I couldn't give the proper parenting to my children. I couldn't be the proper husband to Penny that died. I couldn't be the proper citizen, get a proper job. And my dad was always worried about me. My stepmom was always worried about me. My biological mom was always worried about me. My brothers were always worried about me. But it changed me eventually. And today I can honestly say I just passed the 18-year mark of being clean and sober. So my dry date is 2005, September 5th. So in recovery, I scared the shit out of myself. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't live. I couldn't walk down the road without having a shot of booze. I couldn't think straight. I didn't know I was so codependent. Let's put it this way. When life hit me 1,000 miles an hour, boom, in my face, I didn't know what to do. I used to run the drugs. I used to run the alcohol. I didn't know who to talk to. I didn't know what to do. So they set me up with the treatment center that I was with before I left. They set me up with not only the probation officer, I got to talk to an anger management. Brian Adams was his name. He actually is not the singer. Brian Adams is the counselor up in Arroyo, Ontario. And they also set me up with a counselor at the school. Now, what I did was when I went to get better, I wanted to do better for myself. I wanted to go get educated. I've always wanted to do something with my life, become someone. That was my dream. So I said to myself, I want to be somebody. Now, who can I be? I like to be Robert Moore. See, back in the day, I used to call myself Rob. That was a bad, bad boy, right? I called myself a real troublemaker when I was younger, when I was 13, 14 years old. Today I call myself Robert J. with my middle name in the middle, Moore, because I changed the atmosphere of it all. So I go by Robert J. Moore now, and that's the reason why I do that, is because I don't like to be brought back to where I was, even though I live it every day when I talk about it on stages all across the world and everything else. But here's the thing. I went to school. Going to school was very, very tough. The first year of clean and sober, I got very sick. I don't know why. I don't know what happened. I ended up with bronchitis, pneumonia, and I was still smoking cigarettes. So I tried 10, 15, maybe 20 times quit smoking. The last time I quit smoking, it was really weird because what I did was it was a 15 pack of cigarettes. And I grabbed one cigarette, I put it up like this. It was almost like this one was a devil and this one was God helping me or something. Because I'd go like this, and I'd grab it out of this one, I'd crumple up and I'd throw it in the garbage. I did that almost with the whole pack. And I said to myself, well, if I was in jail and I wanted that cigarette, that tobacco, I'd roll it up, right? I'd roll it up and smoke it. So I grabbed my pop, and I poured the pop in the garbage. And then I said, if there's a God, man, please, I can't do this no more. I can't hardly breathe. I'm dying for a cigarette. I don't want it no more. I had enough. I rolled up on the ball on the bed. When I rolled up in that ball, 4 hours later, I woke up. That bed was soaked. I thought I peed the bed. It was just sweat, just pure sweat. And I'll be honest with you, from that day on, I've not had a cigarette. Because of that transition, my first year, it led into my second year. My second year of sobriety, I decided, well, I wanted to be someone, like I said. I didn't know who, so I went and get some extra counseling from the school. There was a Georgian college I went to. And they said, well, before you come to Georgian college, you have to get your grade 12. So I actually went and got my grade 12 at a learning center, adult learning center. I got my grade 12, then went to Georgian college. I got my social service worker diploma. And then I got McMaster University. I ended up getting my addictions degree. And Lakehead University, I got my BA in psychology. Then I got my master's in counseling psychology. And later on, I got volunteered a year and all these different things. So I was really starting to get into the field of education. But I didn't do it to hang the credentials on the wall. I didn't want to hang them on the wall and brag about, hey, look at me, look at me, look at me. The way I wanted to do it is I wanted to incorporate that as learning and work with other people. So yeah, I was a therapist for 15 years. I was also a counselor for drug and alcohol counseling for 12 years. I was registered in Canada for both. So I did all that to learn why I was being the person I was. Not to sit there and brag about it or nothing. I wanted to show me the behavior I was using was for this reason, for that reason, for this reason. I wanted to understand it. So finally I got to understand it really, really well. And then all of a sudden I started doing a lot of volunteer work. And it allowed me to do like counseling and stuff with people to learn how to do it better. As time went on, I learned that, okay, well, I'm learning how to read these people really well. So it led into, I don't want to work with them as in a counselor no more. That was getting too hard on me. Some of the things I've talked about, some of the people I helped out with grieving, there was a lot of negativity I was helping people with. And it's hard on your body after a while, hard on your mind, your thought. So I decided to help people out with their businesses and coaching them. So when I transitioned into coaching other people and empowering their businesses, it was really perfect because now I can look at the way they deal with things in their personal life, and I can help them with the transition themselves into building that foundation, building that structure that they really need to build that business. It's been estimated I've helped over 200,000 people. I can honestly say today I'm grateful, I'm honored, I'm well recognized. I've won a Guinness World Record for 126 people simultaneously signing at the same time. So my company, Magnetic Entrepreneur Inc., has been well recognized all over the world. For that reason, and not only that, I've also been a part of 201 books, which I just completed. And I had a publishing company, which I published them myself. And empowering other people is amazing because you really get to see the in-depth of someone else. you really get to see what they're going through. So I'm going to recommend if someone has a resentment towards someone else, now I'm going to say it very unpolitely. I'm going to say, if you want to know what a resentment is, it's a grudge that turns into something very, very negative that you can only feel. So if you're the only one that can feel it, that's like pissing down your own leg. You're the only one that can feel that. So what the best way to do is do something nice for that person without saying anything. That will help take away that negativity towards that person. And I've done that many times, or I'd sit beside the person and just, bite my fingers, because I don't like the person, but I'd sit beside the person and just listen. So I've learned through all the education, empowering other people not only empowers them, but helps me a great deal too. I've had the honor to work with a lot of students, a lot of different ones. Some of them didn't work out. Some of them wanted to go on their own path, and that's great. I admire that. If it's not right for you to go this way, then do what you think is best and what you feel is best, because I never mold anybody into what I believe they have to be into. I always mold them into what they believe. So I walk them through that transition. Now, one of my students, Mary Ann, actually, she was actually what they call a headhunter, like an HR person. They were actually looking for people to do for the different jobs and that. She seemed very unhappy with the job that she was doing. She didn't really feel comfortable, I guess. That's how I felt she was going through. So she actually ended up hiring me. And to this day, years later, she's still working with me. And she's actually doing a lot better. She's well set down. She's actually very focused on what she wants. She's a real estate agent today. She has her own publishing company. She does a lot of things right now that is very, very important to her. And I'll tell you something, she's well recognized now too. And I'm very happy about it.
When did I first meet Robert? I met him, I think it's been 4 years now. I think it's been 4 years. It was just before COVID, or maybe it was just at the beginning of a start of COVID. Yeah, I'm going to rough it at about 4 years now. 3.5, 4 years, yeah. So what interested me in working with him was primarily where he came from. His whole story was just, I was like this. Like, he starts talking and I'm going, oh my God, jail and this and that and Hell's Angels and all this. And I'm just like, wow, that's fascinating. And I love it. And all the drugs and all the alcohol. And now he's sober. Like, those are big deals. Like, I know a lot of my clients are ex-alcoholics, and that in itself was tough to deal with. But to have the drugs and the jail and the alcohol and all of this terrible, that's a terrible way to have to grow up, right? But it taught him pretty much everything he knows, and that served as a really great foundation for him to learn and to also get inspired to move forward and to overcome all of this. And I thought, if he could overcome this, then he can definitely help me. So why I needed coaching is, I believe we all need coaching. So I'm never without a coach. That's never going to happen. I think we all do. But when I found out that he was a coach, and he made me write. He made me write. Like, he made me write. Nobody in the world ever made me write. Like, you couldn't make me write a page of something, let alone an entire chapter, let alone 21 chapters. Like, it was, and I thought, and it was funny because he would say something and I'm like, okay. And I'm like, I'm not really that obedient usually with people. I don't usually let people tell me what to do. I'm a little bit like him. And I thought, oh yeah, this dude's a little bit like me. He's going to understand me. And he went through crap. And now he ended up in this really awesome place. You know, he's got a ton of kids, a great family. He's got, I don't even know how many awards he's got. He gets a lot of recognition. And I thought, if he can do this for himself, he can for sure do it for me. And I was intrigued by some of the stuff that he had. I didn't even know what branding was. Like, I didn't understand. I knew a little about it, but I remember my friend, she's a mortgage agent, and she hands me over her business card and she goes, oh, here, this is a part of my branding. And she had some very expensive business card made out of silk. And I'm like, that's branding? And then I hooked up with him, and he really showed me what branding was. Like it was pretty intense. I was pretty intrigued by some of the stuff that was a little bit like the unknown, you know? And I thought, I'm old. I've gone through some stuff. It's time to have some fun with my branding. And I reached places that I never thought. I wasn't even aiming for these places. 100,000% I would not have a publishing company. I would never ever think in a million years I would have a publishing company. I don't think I would have 7 books under my belt. I don't think I would have committed to a series of 12 books. Self-empowerment reset, 12 books. Like I just committed to myself one day. I definitely wouldn't have ended up on Forbes magazine, in Forbes magazine, and also USA Today and Maxim. Those probably wouldn't have happened without Robert. I don't know what venue I would have had to take to try to get there. I never even thought I was going ever to be there. I probably wouldn't have a podcast. Not that he encouraged me so much to have one or that he pointed me in that direction, but he built me up to think that I could do things like that. So Robert has been there, done that, empowered people to do the same, and keeps doing it and doesn't give up and keeps training himself and keeps moving forward and does things and surprises me on a daily basis. And you also don't know what's waiting for you. And it's going to be awesome. That's all I know. He's going to listen. He's going to, he's going to listen to what you say is important to you. Like I always used to say, hey, I love Oprah. I would love to be like another Oprah, like, oh, the podcast, maybe a TV show, this and that. Acting, not really my thing, singing, not my thing, right? But writing, I always wanted to write. And I think I wanted to write because everyone told me I wouldn't be able to write. And so I'm just like, wow, even my friends are like, so you have 7 books? I remember my friend's son's wedding. I was there and he got a little bit drunk by the end of the night. And he goes, hey, you're a celebrity. You're an international best-selling author. And I go, I am. And he goes, you're a freaking celebrity. And I go, thank you. That's nice. And I never really thought that anyone would say that to me ever for any reason. And one day I went to here in Toronto, I went to the home show and I was sitting there at a booth talking to someone and a lady came by and she goes, hey, I know you. You're on TV, right? And I'm like, I thought she was talking to the other girl and I go, TV? Not really. And she goes, yeah, you're on TV. I know I've seen you before. And I go, maybe social media, maybe my podcast, but yeah. And she goes, you're on TV. Yeah, that's where I saw you. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so weird. That's the reason. That's one of the reasons. And another reason is I now get to pass that along. And now I have learned, like I just did a conference the other day and I did it to help someone else. And I did it to help train someone else. Like how beautiful is that? That's part of my coaching now. So I get to pass along what he taught me and continues to teach me. And now I get to pass along to someone else and make someone else feel good. Isn't that the reason we all do everything? When you go through what he goes through, you learn something that you don't learn in a classroom, learning how to become a coach. Like that's lovely, but when you go through life and you go through the mud and you come out, are you kidding? That's amazing. That person is fascinating to me. So I could sit there and listen to him. I'll be like, holy smoke, and then I started talking about my story. And one of the things that he did with me that I probably appreciate the most is I wasn't afraid to talk about myself. I had been up until then. I just thought, oh, nobody really cares. Nobody really cares about this. Like, who's going to care about my story? Who cares that I lived in Croatia and I lived through a war? Who cares that I spent some time in a bomb shelter? Nobody cares about that kind of stuff. And he's like, yeah, I'm going to talk about this. And then he talks about his story. And I'm thinking, well, if he can talk about his story, I can talk about my story. And if people are learning from his story, maybe there's someone out there who can learn something from mine. And that, it was fascinating, right? Like, again, you want someone with substance. You don't want someone who just went to some course on coaching and sat in a classroom and maybe at best did a few sessions with someone within the classroom, maybe 3 or 4 if you're lucky for the weekend, and now they're a certified coach. No, I want someone who went through it. Someone who went through it, and now he can pass it on to me, because I also went through it. I went through some other stuff, different stuff from him. Robert is really, really tough on me sometimes. When I push back, he pushes harder. And he pushes me to move forward, and I don't want to, and I'm like, so difficult. Just like we all have coaching clients, right? And then he just I don't want to say he tramples all over my emotions, but he doesn't really care about your emotions. He cares about your business. He's like, no, you need to do this, you need to do this, you need to do this better, this is how you do this, why don't you know how to do this yet? And I'm just like, I swear I'm going to punch you out soon. I was doing a conference the other day, and I finally got to the point, he texts me and he's like, oh, you forgot to do this, you didn't do this. And I'm like, mm-hmm. And I was just like, yep, that's him. That's okay. He cares a lot about the business though, and he does push me forward. So yeah, it's not always easy working with him.
In recovery, sometimes you got the goods and the bads, and it took me a while, because I was an angry person, so it took me a while to get through the being happy, to see the light side of it. So one day I'm sitting there talking to this guy, and this was best friends with my coach. They call him a sponsor. I called him a coach because he's coaching me basically on my life to help me out. So he's best friends with them, and I'm just talking to this guy. I didn't know nothing really about him. I just knew his name was Jules. That's all I knew at the time. And it was absolutely hilarious because he looks at me and says, do you even know what I do for a living? And I said, no. I said, Jules, what do you do? This is 4 years after I got to know him. 4 years after. Check that out. And guess what he tells me? He told me he was a cop. I did not like cops. I did not like cops for the stuff that I was doing and stuff I was going through. I held them all responsible for what was going on in my life. And it was like that minute, right then and there, I knew that they were human. It was the weirdest thing. I didn't know that they were human before, like in that sense. I just thought they were just out to get me. But I learned that day, they were actually human. They were just doing a job. I was in their way of doing a job, and I accepted it. And I just thought that couldn't have been a perfect timing. Thank God I was accepting of that.
My name is Jules McKenzie. I'm a police officer with the Rama Police Service. We police the Chippewas of Rama First Nation territory and Casino Rama. I have some previous experience with the Ontario Provincial Police in various locations around Ontario. I've been a police officer for 33 years. I met Robert probably around 2005, 2006 when he was at the halfway house at South Street in Aurelia. I'm a recovering alcoholic, and I've been sober coming up on 32 years. I've been sober for quite a while by the time I met Robert, and we just did a little bit of work together, and we started walking a distance together. When we first met, he wanted to have a coffee with me, and I really didn't know what aspect of me he was interested in. When we finally did meet for coffee, I told him that I was a police officer, and he just about spit up his cappuccino or whatever it was he was drinking because he didn't realize that I was. He spit out his coffee and he says, "What do you mean, you're a police officer?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm a police officer. I've been for quite a while." And I think that over the years that at least I have concluded that the reason that there was an attraction between Robert and I is because, in his former life, he still had to abide by a certain charter and a certain code of conduct. In my life as a police officer, I definitely have to abide by a charter, the charter rights, and I have to abide by a certain code of conduct. So there's a certain amount of discipline that was required to be who we were being even then. One afternoon, I was at work, and Robert calls me, and he says, "Jules, how you doing?" And I'm like, "Hey, I'm doing pretty good. How can I help you?" And he says, "I need you to do me a little favor. I need you just to pull my record. I just wanted to know what's still on there." So I thought, that's easy enough to do. So I pulled up his record, and I pulled up his record, and I pulled up his record, and I just couldn't believe it. And, you know, I was trying to be as polite as I could. I said, "Man, there's a lot of content there." And he says, "Yeah, no, I'm trying to get a pardon. Do you think I got enough material to apply for a pardon?" And I thought to myself, like I said to myself, I didn't say to Robert, I said, "Man, I don't know if he's actually going to get a pardon with this kind of criminal record." Like Robert, very inspiring lifestyle. I mean, after all he had been through, and, you know, after a certain amount of sobriety, he decided to go back to school and get his degree, which I don't know if I was as, you know, for lack of a better term, as old as he was. I'm not sure if I would have gone back to school and to get a degree, which he did, and he achieved. There was another afternoon, he reached out to me and he says, "What are you doing this particular Saturday?" And I don't recall what the date was, but I think it was around March, and then this would have been around 2015. He said, "How about I buy you a ticket to go see Tony Robbins in Toronto?" And I was like, "Sure." "What are we going to see?" He said, "Well, we're going to go to Tony Robbins for a day." So we, you know, he bought me a ticket. I drove. We went down there, and you know, we went to the event, and it was a large event of people selling books, materials, publications, you know, in terms of investing in personal growth and development. And it didn't dawn on me until we were lined up at one seminar. I wanted to see this no money down guy. I'm a real estate investor myself. And Robert says, "Well, what are we going to see this guy for? Are we going to be buying his materials?" I said, "No, Robert, no." You know, then it dawned on me. I said, "Robert, we're going to go see this guy speak, because I want to learn, and I think you want to learn, how this guy sells his materials and his books and those kind of things. You know, we don't necessarily want to buy what he's selling. We just want to learn from what he's doing, so possibly we could, you know, become one of those guys. We want to learn how this guy is doing what he's doing, and maybe we can be what this guy is, so that we could probably, you know, eventually monetize our materials." And Robert certainly has been quite successful in monetizing, you know, what he knows in terms of persevering and overcoming obstacles and challenges, and, you know, quite inspiring, quite an awesome program. So Robert and I have kept in contact, you know, various times throughout the year for many years now. I continue to read books, and so does he. We continue to personally grow and develop, and so, you know, it's just been tremendous. I've been so inspired to watch Robert's progress, ongoing personal growth and development, and it inspires me to want to keep growing and personally developing as well. I really didn't think he was going to get his pardon, but obviously Robert had a vision for his life, and that vision didn't include this lengthy criminal record. So my advice to the old Robert was, keep going, man. Like, just keep stepping your step, keep doing you, because the details don't matter. The details don't matter. You're going to keep pressing forward, and you're going to keep achieving, and it's going to inspire us all to want to do the same. Robert, if you keep doing what you're doing, you're going to be tremendously successful, and you're going to be one of those guys, you know, that we wanted to see, just like Tony Robbins, you know, fill in the Toronto Convention Center.
I very much hope my journey has inspired you and helps you move forward with decisions that you're making. Hopefully they're positive. I am a man of Christ, I will admit that. I'm married into a family of a Christian family, and I'm very happy with that. Today, I can honestly sit there and say empowering other people is a gift. It's an honor. It's something I love doing because when I see someone smile, it brings that smile right back to you. It makes me feel really comfortable to know that that person has got that internal peace. That even for that moment that they're just smiling, understanding me. I really hope that I inspired you in some way, and I want to say thank you.
I've been a husband, brother, and a son. Called a friend to no one on my own since 17 to make my way through shattered dreams. Never listening to anyone. Spent my youth on the run, fighting and standing to get me by, bottling drugs to keep me high. Everyone I loved I betrayed. One of many mistakes I made. Arrested and locked up in jail. Another fool in a crowded cell.
Just because you've fallen doesn't mean you fell. Put aside your past and love yourself. Put back the pieces and you'll be one. Hear my words, don't you come undone. Just because you've fallen doesn't mean you fell.
I took a stand to my 12-step plan, never looking back at once was me. I had to be stripped of emotions and guilt so I could become the man you see. Never caring what became of me, never caring what others see. I went from a loser with many needs to a man of a purpose, I'm a man of means.
He took a stand, made his first grand, never looking back at once was he. He educated himself and taught anyone about business, strength, humanity. Awarded titles and accolades, seen his name at the top of the page. Folk magazine wrote about him, about the entrepreneur he's come to be.
If the journey's easy, then it's just begun. You must suffer for the things you have done. Emotional, physical, and mental pain is the price that I paid to gain. I made a promise to myself that I become someone else. I'm not the man I became to be. Nothing left of once was me. Just because I've fallen doesn't mean I fell.